Over these last 6 months, my back has become way bigger. Thickness and width is on a whole new level. What's crazy is that it wasn't even intentional. But I'm able to pinpoint the exact methods that got me these gains. So how about I share that with you so that you too can get yoked? Starting with the weighted pull-up journey. It seems that ever since I acquired 4 plates, I respond that much better to all forms of back training. The journey between 3 and 4 was a long-term plateau that once overcame, kickstarted new progress. I'm sure you've experienced this in your life before, where maybe you're stuck at a 225 bench, but then when you finally crush it, you get that 250, the journey to 275 and 315 is smooth. But before that, it's difficult. How does that work? I don't know. Maybe it's epigenetics, maybe it's just us getting smarter and more experienced. Regardless, what I can say is that during my cut, I maintained most of my back strength, hence why I was able to acquire a lifetime PR. But because I was only 150 pounds soaking wet, I wasn't able to see the mass at the time because everything, proportionally speaking, was smaller. And bodybuilding is an illusion. Plus, you're never gonna look your biggest in a shredded natural state. And so, when I started bulking again, which I've put on a good 30 pounds since then, not only was there a crazy rebounding effect, but my back of all things seemed to grow even more. Which makes me suspect that at the end stages of my cut, the moment I got that 4-plate pull-up, I probably lost muscle. Even though it was still lifetime PR, meaning if I wouldn't have taken the cut that extreme, perhaps I would have gotten 190, 195, which represents a much larger increase in strength, which does make sense when you map it out over these last few years of weighted pull-up specialization. Of course, this is all speculation on my part, but I think what happened is that just by getting out of a prolonged calorie deficit and depleted state, I was able to finally see the gains that were actually made during that time frame, which were not apparent in a super light state. That's the only way I can rationalize this because the timing is too perfect. But if you got alternative ideas, let me know because I'd love to hear it. Anyway, that's only the start. Now I want to talk about the recent changes to my training that are actually going to serve you. Though the classic advice of just getting stronger weighted pull-ups really does work and I'd highly recommend it. So, I'm going to divide this into upper back and lats, starting with the upper back. If you've been watching my training videos, you'll know I've been doing super wide grip pull-ups. And the reason is that I've always sucked at that variation. It's the one style that I have very little experience with. I've always done medium, close, or a little bit wide, but the forearms are still vertical. Never have I experimented with them being completely diagonal, such that you're pulling in a V formation. This has been one of the craziest upper back thickeners I've ever done in my life. My teres major is popping out like a mother, and it's even helped my traps of all things. That's something I never expected to gain from pull-ups. You know me as a guy who do a bunch of cheat shrugs, cheat rows, weighted stretch overloads, but super wide grip pull-ups to build your traps? Are you fucking serious? And even the thoracic lats. And this is something I missed out on. I hadn't analyzed the movement hard enough, but because of the shoulder adduction, obviously the lats are not taken out completely. And this explains why a lot of old school bodybuilders still got jacked from this movement. But just to say, I seem to have gone thicker there too, even though that was not the primary intention. So that's why I'm always saying in my videos, there's nuance to these discussions. It's not so black and white that it's a latless pull, because I have heard that from some biomechanics experts, and they're wrong. It's not optimal for that purpose, but you're still gonna build some lats. But yeah, that's been one of the major game changers. I haven't done any normal pull-ups. It's been exclusively with a super wide grip, not only with the bar, but also gymnastic rings. And I'll just keep pushing for more progress. Haven't done more than 60 pounds. The goal is 2 plates for 3 sets of 10, which I've already done on the other variations, but never with a super wide grip. So a way I can simplify this first point is by doing the reversal variation that you suck at. Bald Omni Man likes to reference the Yu-Gi-Oh card. Next, let's talk about horizontal pulls, which can't be neglected if you want maximum thickness. Here's a confession. Besides weighted calisthenics, all of my rows have been with cables or machines. I don't do any free weighted rows at this time frame. Though I do plan on experimenting with seal rows and chest supported now that I have my adjustable bench. Regardless, the major point remains. I don't do rows that involve the spinal erectors. That is reserved for lower body days via the hip hinges and squats where they will be highly engaged. And I don't want that being the limiting factor. Unless I do rows on those days. But I like doing that on upper body days like most of you guys. That is why we row, to build the musculature of the upper back. And so, if I'm doing one arm rows, it'll be with my belt squat machine, where I'm leaning all the way forward, basically not loading the back at all. But my main mass builder is gonna be the Ghetto row. In the rack, using my cable setup, where it's a 1-to-1 load. The number that you see on the loading pin is actually what the it says it is. And I'm always changing attachments. If I want more rear delt, I'll use a 45-degree angle with an easy bar. If I want more lat, I'll use a strap and bring the arms closer to the body, or even my spreader bar. If I want pure upper back, then I can use a straight bar and flare the arms completely out to the sides. That's really going to demolish the rhomboids and traps. You basically get 3 good variations by manipulating the arm path, plus you can always experiment with different rep ranges to prolong the movement. But yeah, these have been money, and I take progressive overload very seriously. At one point, 4 plates for reps used to be difficult. Now, it's a warm-up. I'm doing 4.5 plates for work sets. Soon to hit 5. It's going well. That's the basic movement. The stimulus to fatigue ratio is way better than most free weighted rows, and this complements your horizontal pushes very nicely, particularly if you're a strong bencher that needs that extra volume in. So that's my go-to row of choice. I favor these 7 out of 10 times. And if I'm at the gym, it's going to be a chest supported row of some kind. But again, a hammer strength machine or with cables. Now the last thing I'll say about the upper back is that lower body training has been immensely helpful, even though the movements are isometric and weighted stretch base. Basically, you're not actively pulling through a full range of motion, but that still adds to your overall workload. And there does appear to be some evidence that when you get your deadlift to at least 500 pounds, this does minimize the need for extra rowing volume. It seems that just the absolute load itself is enough to create some kind of stimulus. Maybe that's why a lot of guys get great gains from doing deadlifts and pull-ups as elite pullers. That's a whole other video. All this to say, your upper back will absolutely be thicker when you're not being lazy with lower body training. After all, is this not how I got yoked in the first place? Doing trap bar deads, block pulls, movements that actively involve your spinal erectors, which also contribute to that thick look, by the way. They run from the base all the way to the top. Anyways, the whole package I'm talking about here, but if I am to pinpoint one specific movement that's going to help your upper back the most, it will be any exercise where the SSB is in reverse. So you see the logo right there? That's where it should be when you're squatting or doing good mornings. This will flip the camber in a way that literally pulls you forward on every single movement that you do. The upper back will now be a limiting factor. You basically have that front squat effect. So when you do good mornings, your upper back is going to want to round. You have to extend. When you squat, you got to keep those handles up instead of collapsing down. It's one of the ultimate hacks for strengthening that upper back. So give them not a shot, and you're probably going to feel the soreness the next day, even though you're training legs. Moving forward, let's talk about building that V-taper. If you look at my back, you'll clearly see that it looks a lot different compared to former physiques. Not only is it wider, but it's developed in very specific regions. And what I'm specifically talking about right now are the lower lats, aka the iliac division, which once upon a time, we once thought was complete bro science that it was even possible to induce a muscle biasing effect. But as more research has come out and the field of biomechanics expanded, a lot of us are going to have to eat humble pie because the bros were right. Changing the angles makes a difference. So let's talk about the 3 criteria that are most important for building bigger lats. The first is spinal flexion. You can't be arching your back like a banana. which is a commonly prescribed cue. How many of you have been taught lean back on your pull downs or arch your spine with your legs behind you while doing weighted pull-ups? In reality, many calisthenics professionals had it right from the get-go. Posterior pelvic tilt, in which the legs are slightly in front of the body, or better yet, elevating. Basically, the abs should be braced, or at least you should try to resist extension. Secondly, when we talk about vertical pulls, it would appear that the lats lose leverage around 120 degrees of shoulder flexion. So you want to limit the range to your active range of motion. And a good test is to assume a supinated position and raise your arm over your head until you're really stretched out. That right here is where you want to go when you're doing your pull downs, not all the way back. Otherwise, you are going to get additional assistance from the upper back. Finally, the arm path is extremely important. Just like the rows, we want the upper arm bone, aka humerus, to be tight, close to the body, which also means if you want to fully stretch your lats, you have to actually come towards the midline. So that's how you emphasize the lengthened position. But the traditional form is probably going to be straight out here. So if the goal is lats, on average, you should not be pulling away from the body. But do keep this in mind. I gave you 3 criteria. You don't necessarily have to reach all of them. Look at the big picture, though this combination would be optimal. Now, how do these principles apply to my training? Well, I've been doing Ghetto lat pull downs. And it just so happens that it meets these criteria, which I figured out accidentally. Hence, going back to the original introduction. When you have your feet up on the power rack, you are forcing spinal flexion because it's the only way you can do the exercise. You can't really lean back. You are locked into place. But at the same time, you have maximum stability, which is extremely important for hypertrophy training. Whenever you're unstable, you miss out on force production. This allows you to overload like no other and automatically maximizes the weight of stretch in a way that you don't have to resist. Next, the arm path is diagonal, which already makes it better for lats. You can't get really close or else the loading pin would literally crush you and you have nothing to put your feet against. So this saves the hassle of having to set up another bench behind us or kneeling really close to the original seat and bracing yourself that way. Finally, I use what is called a spreader bar, which is essentially a V-bar that opens up at the bottom, which provides a superior range of motion. It's not just a stretch followed by an incomplete contraction at the bottom. Now we can wrap around the body, really get a tight squeeze in. Now again, you don't need this attachment. It's just about the principles. Use longer handles with that neutral positioning, which can be any bar with some handles attached to it. When I first started doing these, I was surprised how sore I was getting in my lats. And the contractions were unlike anything I had done in the gym. And I was like, what's going on? Because I started doing these last year. It's only after learning the biomechanics that I'm able to put 2 and 2 together and say, oh, this is why. So the Ghetto lat pull downs are a must do, and I've gotten so much stronger at them. Used to do 3.5 plates and 4 was almost impossible. Way too heavy. Now I'm repping that for sets of 12 and it's moving nicely. So I'm just gonna keep milking these gains and embracing basic progressive overload. By the way, my form is not even perfect. And even though this is a great exercise, it's not the number 1 for the lower lats. That would actually be an iliac lat pull down with some chest support. So if you want to set that up, be my guest. And I do mix in some of that, but typically 1 arm at a time because I find it less of a hassle to set up. See, when you're really strong at that lift, you're gonna have to put something on your bench to anchor it, or else it's literally gonna tip forward. But when it's done right, you best believe the contractions are insane. For me personally, I like single arm variations just because I don't need to load as many plates. It's super fast and it corrects my muscular imbalances, which have been improved upon over this entire time frame. And this is not just what I do at home, it's also at the gym. Though over there, the machines will not be as perfectly lined up. So you do what you can, and regardless, when you're performing multiple exercises either in the same session or on a weekly basis, there's going to be enough overlap that you don't necessarily have to worry about what's optimal per se. That's just something to keep in mind. Don't overthink this. It's not that complicated. With that said, I got nothing more to say about back gains. This is how I did it. The weighted pull-up journey. The new upper back motions that I've been doing that correct my weakness. And then an intense focus on the lower lats specifically. Because I have the information, I'm going for it. I'm not being rigid in my ways. And it seems to be working well so far. Never has my back looked this good. So I hope you try out some of the things I showed you. Let me know how you like this segment, and I'll talk to you on the next one.